Happening. Happy Wednesday night to all of you. A breaking news edition of the Nick Cattle Show here live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Before we get started with this Matthew Judon getting traded to the Atlanta Falcons news, don't forget to do me a solid. Let's build this community, right? And we do that a few ways. Hit the thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up right now. Takes a second of your time, helps build the audience. Throw a comment in. I see a bunch of comments coming in. Do you like this trade? Do you hate this trade? Are you okay with what the Patriots did tonight? So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also like on Twitter, like on Facebook as we move along. And for those who are going to catch up on demand, Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review. Multiple reports just about 1 hour ago or so tell us that Matthew Judon is headed to Atlanta to play for the Falcons. The Patriots get a 2025 third-round pick, and I have a lot of thoughts on this deal. My head was just spinning as I was eating dinner, getting ready for this podcast, getting ready to attack this, right? Let's start here. Let's just start with the basic fundamental thing. I do not believe the Patriots and Matthew Judon were going to agree to a contract. It didn't feel like they were going to agree to a contract. They were not going to be able to revise his contract. There had been reports that they were far apart. They weren't close. Judon was obviously not happy. And I've said this from the very beginning of the offseason. The Judon contract situation and negotiation was very, very difficult because you had a guy who just turned 32 years old, coming off of a torn bicep, wanting to be paid more money. You had a front office that was trying to do things differently. They're trying to help rebuild this organization, get this franchise back to what it once was after a 4-win miserable season. And it was going to be a very difficult situation because Judon, rightly so, by the way, wanted to make more money this year. He deserved to make more money this year. He is not a $6.5 million player. We know that. I would not be surprised within the next 48 hours we hear that Judon has signed a contract extension of some sort with the Falcons. We all know that Judon is worth more than $6.5 million this year. We get it. The issue, again, was long-term. And how could you bump his money up to a reasonable figure where he would be okay with it and you would be okay with it? It was a very, very difficult negotiation to navigate through. I've said that from the beginning. I have felt that the entire way. And it only got more difficult when Davon Godchaux got his contract. Now, some people look at Jabril Peppers. I don't really look at Jabril. I look at Godchaux. It was that Monday. It was that Monday practice where Godchaux's agent, Drew Rosenhaus, was in-house at Gillette Stadium. He was having conversations with the Patriots. It was rather obvious, everybody watching that day, how things played out. Judon was upset. He was angry. He walked off the field, came back onto the field, walked off the field. Godchaux, meanwhile, post-practice is sitting there joking with Gerard Mayo and Drew Rosenhaus. We find out that Godchaux gets the contract extension, right? And if you're Judon, again, I do not blame Judon. I do not blame him for how he feels. But if you're Judon and you're looking at this and you say, okay, so Godchaux just got $16.5 million guaranteed. The thought was that Godchaux got $16.5 million guaranteed because he got all of his money this year guaranteed. And then the Patriots gave him an additional year at about $8.5 million guaranteed. And they likely tacked on a dummy year to the contract. So if you're Judon at that point, you say to yourself, okay, I want to get money guaranteed this year, but I'm worth more than $6.5 million. So you've got to bump me up. Nobody knows what Judon wanted. But he has talked about being, a top 15 guy in the game at his position. If you're going to pay him top 15, he's going to make $15 to $20 million this year guaranteed. So if you're Judon, you want to sit here and say to yourself, hey, okay, let's do what you did with Godchaux. Do it with me. Guarantee my money this year. Give me a significant raise this year. Let's say $15 million. But not only that, just like you did with Devon, I want you guys to pay me another year. I don't think it's crazy to suggest that Judon could have been asking the Patriots to pay him upwards of 25 to 30 million guaranteed. If you look at the Godchaux money and what he was making, if you're going to go off of that structure, Godchaux making about $8.5 million this year, and then $8.5 million next year, if you're going off of that structure, then Judon could say, you've got to bump me to $15 million this year, and you got to guarantee me another 15 next year. So the Gottschalk contract made things even more difficult to get through with Judon. So I just don't think this is a situation where each side, they were dug in. And I don't blame either side. It might sound like I'm sitting on the fence, but I'm not. I don't blame Judon to go out there at 32 years old to play for $6.5 million this year. If you get hurt, now you're royally screwed. Judon wanted some security. He wanted some commitment. He wanted commitment beyond this year, or at least pay him a handsome amount of money, right? So I don't blame him. Highly productive player, wanted to get paid. Every player knows you've got a small window to make the most amount of money you can. You've got to take advantage of that window. That's what Judon was trying to do. So I don't blame him, but I also don't blame the Patriots, because if you're looking at Judon, you're talking about a guy who's 32, coming off of a major injury, a major surgery. You're not going to guarantee him $20 million, $25, $30 million. You're just not going to do that. Look at the other contracts. Look at the contracts. They were all pretty reasonable as far as retaining guys. The Duggar contract made him the 6th highest paid safety. The Onwenu contract pretty much puts him at 5 or 6 as far as offensive guards. But Onwenu's healthy. Onwenu's younger, right? Peppers is younger. Peppers is healthy. The Patriots looked at this. You could look at every guy. Godshaw, younger than 30. Tavai, younger than 30. Peppers, younger than 30. Duggar, younger than 30. Onwenu, younger than 30. Jennings, younger than 30. Stevenson, younger than 30. So yes, while they were retaining guys and they were signing these contracts, they were giving these contracts to guys who were either in their prime right now or about to walk into their prime. It's a much different situation when you're rebuilding a football team and you're rebuilding an organization, and you've got a 32-year-old pass rusher who wants guaranteed money. It's a completely different negotiation. So we don't have to be lazy about it and compare him to all of these other contract extensions that have been done this offseason. Every single negotiation is different. Every single story is different. So when you look at age, you look at asking price, you look at injury history, all of those things play a role. I have a lot more thoughts on this. If you want to get your thoughts to the front of the line, send a super chat Vitalix with a $50 super chat. Thank you, Vitalix. If you want your question or your comment to be heard, throw me a super chat. I will get it right up there. I understand the logistics behind this move, but I got to drink one for the loss. Last time I saw Judon was at the Cowboys game. He got hurt in. I was wearing my Judon jersey with a long sleeve red shirt under it. I'm going to miss watching his celly. Vitalix, I appreciate the super chat. To spend your hard-earned money on this content means the world to me. So thank you so much for doing that. And before I go further, I'm going to agree with Vitalix. What this is not going to be from my side is a trash Matthew Judon party. There's no need for it. This guy was great. He was great here. He was highly productive on the field. He was a team leader off the field. He was a team leader on the field. He was seemingly always in a good mood up until this contract stuff happened. He was always in a good mood. He was always positive, going through some tough years. He would stand in front of the media. He would talk to the media and take accountability and responsibility to where this team was. He was a big voice in the room. And so he was productive on the field. He was productive off the field. He was fantastic to the fans. Absolutely fantastic. He was pretty much like an ambassador, especially post Tom Brady. He was an ambassador for this football team. And I will never look at Judon and criticize him for his time here. I thought he was tremendous. You got everything that you wanted out of Matthew Judon. Never afraid to speak. So I think that does need to be said. And we can certainly pour one out. I mean, I got my water tonight. It's a Wednesday. Pour one out for Judon. I do think he was a tremendous piece of this team for the last few years. And he signed that big contract, and he made that contract justified by his play. So I absolutely agree with that. All right, some more thoughts. Judon was not going to go quietly, was he? You know, I just did a Patreon podcast for my Patreon members earlier today talking about Judon. And I just talked about the more recent stuff, right? The Instagram story with the 9 or 10-year-old, however old that young man was, that kid, right? He was going to social media. He was pounding social media. He was pounding Twitter. He was pounding Instagram. He had the media session last Monday. I just didn't feel right. That media session, you know, during the weekend, things seemed to be turning. People were being optimistic. There were some people saying, hey, maybe they do have a contract agreed on. Maybe they are getting closer. Judon seems like he's happy. Maybe they've turned a corner. And then he went out there last Monday and he has that media session. He didn't make himself look good. He certainly did not make the team look good. He poured more gasoline on the fire. Then he goes to Twitter. More gasoline on the fire. Wants to beef with WEEI. Then he goes to Instagram yesterday or last night. More gasoline on the fire. Judon was not going to go quietly. He was not going to continue quietly, right? And again, it is his right to want more money. And I'm not going to sit here and cast aspersions for a guy who wants to make as much money as he can. That is his right. But to publicly handle things the way he started to handle things, it didn't help. Showing up Mayo on the practice field, showing up Wolf and Groh on the practice field, therefore showing up the franchise, and then going to social media and handling the media the way he did, things were not going to be just done discreetly. Judon wasn't happy. He wanted to get paid, which was his right. He wanted to make sure everybody knew that he wanted to get paid, and he was going to be a distraction, right? I mean, he already was a distraction. The publicity of it all, if you're Mayo, you're trying to get everybody on the same page. You're trying to get everybody to pull in the right direction. And any kind of blowback is something that you try to stay away from. So Judon was unhappy. It was obvious that he was unhappy. Who knows how he would have played during the season? Who knows if he would have kept talking during the week, during game week? I have no idea. But it got to the point where it was a distraction. He was making it an even bigger distraction. And at some point, you have to cut the cord. You have to cut the cord. And the Patriots, I think they knew they couldn't go long-term with Judon. Like, if I'm Elliott Wolf, I'm not going to go long-term with Judon until at least I see him out there playing and he gives me a season, right? And he's productive again and he looks healthy and he's vibrant and he's doing all those things. I'm not going to sit there and just commit tens of millions of guaranteed dollars to a guy who just turned 32 coming off of that surgery because of goodwill. I'm just not. That's a bad business decision. And frankly, the timeline's off, right? But the Patriots have a timeline. The Patriots are trying to rebuild. This is year one of a rebuild. And so they have to be patient with certain situations. Judon is trying to get paid right now. That's why it might sound like I'm bailing on an opinion. I'm not. I totally understand Judon's side of this. I understand the Patriots side of this. Sometimes you just can't work it out. Sometimes business wasn't meant to be had. You have a guy who's 32. He's a pass rusher. He wants to get paid right now. You have a team who is rebuilding. They don't feel like they're in the space to pay him what he wants, given the circumstances of his specific situation. I understand both of these sides. The timeline doesn't match. All right, I have more thoughts. I want to talk about the return. First, don't forget, take a second of your time. Doesn't cost you any money. Costs you literally like a second to just click that thumbs up. If you're watching on YouTube, give us that like. Means the world to us, helps build the community. If you're watching on Facebook, give us a like. If you're watching on Twitter, give us a like. Send this out to the ether if you enjoy the content. Also, you can comment. You can tell me that you disagree with me, you agree with me, whatever. You can throw a comment in there. The more comments, the better. That's how this algorithm works. I would not be asking you if I didn't have to ask you. That's the world we live in. So like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, on demand, rate and review. All right, let's get to the trade value. And let's get to the asset that was sent to the Patriots. This was a great trade as far as assets go. This was a great return. A great return. Judon's 32, just coming off surgery. He's disgruntled. He's unhappy. Teams know that he's unhappy. Now, you would think that somebody who is as unhappy as Judon is and has gone as public as Judon has gone, you would think the team that is trading for Judon would have all the leverage in the talks. All the leverage in the talks to me would mean 4th round pick, 5th round pick. I mentioned this on the Patreon podcast that I did earlier today. I said, maybe it's a conditional 3rd. Maybe, if Judon plays X amount of games, the Patriots can get a 3rd round pick. But I figured there would be some conditions attached to this pick. According to all the reports that I see, not so much. There are no conditions. This is a straight up 3rd round pick in next year's draft. That is a fantastic return given the situation the Patriots were in, right? They didn't really have much leverage in these conversations. Last year of the deal, the guy is in his 30s, just had a big-time surgery, and is telling the whole world that he's unhappy on social media. You didn't have much leverage. So to get a top 100 pick in next year's draft, that is a great return. That is just a great return. That's a big-time asset. It's a big-time asset in a couple of ways. It's a big-time asset if you just take the pick, right? You have the pick in next year's draft. It's a top 100 pick. We don't know where Atlanta will finish. They're in win-now mode, even though they spent their 1st-round pick on Michael Penix, a little bit on that later on. But Atlanta is in win-now mode, and, maybe they make a run, and maybe this pick is towards the bottom of the 3rd round. But who the hell knows? Kirk Cousins is coming back from a torn Achilles. Crazier things have happened. I'm not wishing injury to the man, but you do have somebody who is the starting quarterback in his upper 30s coming back from a torn Achilles. Yes, they have Penix because of using that draft pick on the quarterback, but we have no idea how Penix will look. We have no clue if he had to come in and sub for Kirk Cousins. A lot of things can happen. This could end up being a top 10, 15 pick in the 3rd round. Atlanta could make the run. It could end up in the bottom 3rd of the 3rd round. But to me, that doesn't even matter. Getting a top 100 pick is a win. It is a win. And you can use that pick and draft a young player, or you can use that pick as ammo. If you're the Patriots, now you have an extra 3rd round pick in next year's draft. So in case you want to try to trade for a wide receiver, for example, next offseason, now you have an extra pick that you can do that. If you want to try to trade up to draft a wide receiver 1 in next year's draft, you now have that extra pick to do that. If you want to try to trade up and draft a left tackle, you now have an extra pick that you can do that. An extra top 100 pick is no joke. No joke whatsoever. That is a valuable asset. That is a day 2 pick. So when you're looking at this and you're looking at the big picture, having that 3rd round pick next year could pay big time dividends to the Patriots. Whether they use it on a player and draft a young guy, or they use it as part of a trade, it's ammo. It's giving Elliott Wolf options. And having an extra 3rd round pick is not a bad thing when you are rebuilding a football team. Make no mistake about it. Don't get it twisted. I've said it from the beginning. This is obviously a rebuild, not about 2024. I want this team to be as competitive as they can be, depending on who's out there on the field. But this is about rebuilding. This is not a one-and-done situation. You are not going to fix this team in one offseason. It wasn't going to happen. So when you add an extra 3rd round pick, you add an extra top 100 pick, that helps your rebuild. That helps you get to where you want to get to eventually next year, the year after. That's how this works. So getting a top 100 pick for Judon, I think, was a big-time win. Some people might say, but Nick, you would get a compensatory pick for Judon. Not necessarily. Don't forget, compensatory picks happen when you don't sign big-time free agents. The Patriots, and I know some people will say, well, Nick, they had a lot of cap space this year. I get it. They still spent a decent amount of money. Whether you agree or not, I don't know what to tell you. They spent a decent amount of money. They just spent the money on their own guys. We can sit there and we can go back and forth on the groceries that they bought, but we can't disagree that they bought groceries. They spent money. The figures prove it. So when you look at next offseason, they have about $77 million in cap space. So if they go out into next free agency, right, they go into the 2025 offseason and they bring back a big-time free agent, there's going to be no compensatory pick. That is not a guarantee. It is not a given. If you sign big free agents, if you spend free agent money, you are not rewarded with those compensatory picks. So Matthew Judon might have walked away for zero. Squadouche. He might have walked away after this season was done and said, thank you, I'm moving on. I'm going to go sign elsewhere. And as he walked away from your organization, you get nothing back. So getting a top 100 pick instead of getting nothing back, because I believe Judon would have moved on. I believe he would have went elsewhere. This was not going to get done. There was enough that was said, enough that was done. I don't think the two sides would have come together harmoniously after the season was over and Judon was going to say, oh, yeah, thanks for the hardcore negotiation. I'm going to come right on back. I'll be fine. I don't think that was going to happen. So you were very likely to lose Judon for nothing. So getting a top 100 pick, to me, is great. The new regime, Wolf, Mayo, this front office, Lonzo Highsmith, they need everybody pulling in that same direction. And now they have to look towards a future that presently, when you look at where they're headed here in 2024, this upcoming season, it's a future that I think all of us agree is not looking great. You're in year one of a rebuild. Christian Barmore is out indefinitely. And hopefully that young man gets healthy, he gets good, and is able to live life aside from the football side of this, right? Let's just hope that he is good. So Barmore is going to be out indefinitely. He was arguably your best pass rusher last year, and I would say he was your best pass rusher when Judon got hurt. From that point moving forward, Barmore was pretty much your guy, making impact play after impact play in the backfield. You don't have Barmore. You have now moved on from Judon. It's a huge hit. Trading Judon is a huge hit to this football team. And I know people will say they didn't have Judon last year. They didn't have Gonzalez last year. They were still a top 10 defense in DVOA. I understand. But every year is different. And now you don't have Barmore. You stack on top of that you don't have Judon. You're going against a very, very, very tough schedule. You're going against a murderer's row of quarterbacks and offenses. So it's a huge hit to this pass rush, especially. It's a huge hit to this defense on all three downs because Judon is an edge player who can play all three downs. So we talked about this, I think it was earlier in the podcast today that I did, looking forward to tomorrow night's game against Philadelphia. One of my big questions was, will this pass rush be able to get to quarterbacks without blitzing a ton? Last week against Carolina in the preseason game, they blitzed a ton. Will they be able to just send their defensive line and get to the quarterback? Trading Judon hurts that. Unequivocally hurts it. It's not debatable. This team is not better without Judon than it was with Judon. Not this year. Not the way things are set up. So this is going to have a significant impact on the pass rush. And it's going to be up to other guys to do the job. I'll get to that thought in a minute. First, don't forget, take a second of your time, like, comment, those two things. It's engagement. YouTube wants engagement. They will not send this to more people. More eyeballs will not see this without the engagement. So we can do that two ways. You can press that like button, that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube. Facebook, Twitter, my people out there like it as well. Comment, throw a comment into this YouTube channel, whether it's live or if you're watching this on demand on YouTube, throw a comment in. That helps drive the engagement. And also, if you don't mind, subscribe. Trying to get to 3,500 subscribers by kickoff of this season. We're inching towards that way. We got a couple more weeks. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's go to Terry. Super chat. Thanks, Nick, for the breaking news on Judon. Glad the Judon drama is over. Yeah, I think you now can kind of cut that cord, right? You've moved on. This storyline is no longer a storyline. You've made your decision, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. It is what it is, as they say. The decision has been made. You've moved on from Matthew Judon, and now you look towards the future. By the way, Andrew Callahan has put this up there in his Twitter feed that the Patriots, the 2024 cash spending, as I just mentioned, 11th in active cash spending, 9th in total cash spending, 7th in full guaranteed spending, 8th in total free agent spending. I will also add to Andrew's tweet. I know the Patriots, as of last week, were top 5 in first-year cash. So that's why when I mentioned just a little while ago that even though some people will disagree and stomp their feet, the Patriots have spent money this offseason. They've bought groceries. I think people have more beef about what groceries they bought. But don't tell me they haven't spent, because it's just not true. I don't care who tries to spin it that way on the radio or on TV. They've spent money this offseason. They have clearly spent money. They've been in the top 7 to 10 of teams this offseason spending money. And let's not forget, they just tried to offer Brandon Ayuk $32 million a year. They offered Calvin Ridley $40 million guaranteed. So if they were able to get one of those deals done, if Ayuk was willing to come to New England, that money would have jumped exponentially, and the Patriots pretty much across the board would have been top 5 in every single spending category this offseason. But let's get back to Terry's super chat here. The drama is over, yes, and now we look forward. And so as we look forward, we start with Keon White. One of the best things about this trade to me is that you now have given the keys to Keon White. You are handing the keys to Keon White. You are giving him this opportunity. He is now going to be handed a bunch of reps. He's going to be given the opportunity to be a full-time defensive end for the New England Patriots. This trade puts the crosshairs on White. White now has a golden opportunity to grasp onto this job and show people that he's an impact guy and that he can be a game-changing type talent. And that gets me excited. Keon White, many people will tell you, I've been to 4 padded practices and the joint practice, so a total of 5 practices. Keon White, I've seen him jump off a few times, right? I've seen him make some plays. I've seen the impact he can make. He has flashed. Other people will tell you that he's been one of the best defensive players during this camp. And tomorrow night, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of Keon White. This is now his chance. And I'm excited about that because I want to see if Keon White can be that game-changing edge. I want to see if Keon White can be as good as his potential makes you feel like he can be. Can he take that step? Can he progress? Can he be an absolute freaking monster? And as you're rebuilding and you're trying to reestablish yourself, part of rebuilding is giving the opportunity and handing the keys to younger talent to see if they can do what you hope that they can do, to see if they can take advantage of more snaps and more reps. So Keon White is now going to have a golden chance to be a critical player for this football team, not only this season, but far into the future. This is his shot. And I think that's great. I wanted to see Keon White get this kind of shot. And now he gets it. Is he going to be a part of this program for the long term and be a difference maker for this defense the next 6, 7, 8 years? Or is he going to show us that he might be more of a substitute type player? Right? Somebody who might be a sub-pass rusher. We'll find out now because there is absolutely nothing in the way of Keon White. This is his great swing at becoming a full-time, legitimate impact defensive end at the NFL level. Charlie jumps in with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. Again, if you want your comments or your questions read, send a super chat my way. Test the young guys. See who's got moxie. And then we know how to use all these picks next year as they drafted really well this year. Let's go. It's the youth, right? It's the youth. And Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf, they have said they're going to play their young guys. They're going to lean on their young guys. And this is leaning on Keon White. This is giving the opportunity for White to take over. And you hope that he's able to do it. You hope that he's able to do that. You also look at some other players, right? O'Shane Ximines. This is his chance. This is his chance to get after the quarterback. This is his chance to make the roster. He had a good game last week against Carolina as far as pass rush and special teams. He's not great against the run. He's never been good against the run. He's not a 3-down defensive edge. That is not O'Shane Ximines. I know him from his days back at ODU, Old Dominion football, when I was down in Virginia Beach and we were the flagship station of ODU. He is not going to be a run stopper. He's not going to be a run stuffer. He's not going to contain the edge very well. But if you need a guy on third down to get to the quarterback, you can do a lot worse than O'Shane Ximines. So this is his opportunity to get on the field. Joshua Uche, he's on a 1-year deal. Joshua, if you want to get a new deal, if you want to get more money, if you want to prove your worth before you walk into the free agency period of next offseason, this is your chance now. You might get some more snaps. Anthony Jennings popped last year. Judon went out. Jennings took over, took a lot of snaps, and Jennings was a borderline revelation for the Patriots last year. Bad season, 4 wins, I get it, but the defense was pretty damn good. And Anthony Jennings proved himself as a legitimate NFL player on the edge. So this is a chance for Jennings to play and get those snaps and prove that last year wasn't an aberration. This is a chance for Jelani Tavai to get some time off the edge. It's a chance for Dietrich Wise to get some snaps on the edge. So you have people, right? None of them are as good as Matthew Judon, but you do have legitimate NFL players on this roster at that position. Some of them are specialized, like Uche and Ximines. Some of them are pretty well-rounded, like Anthony Jennings. Can Jennings make a few more plays getting into the backfield this year? Can he get after the quarterback a little bit more than he did last year? Maybe. None of us anticipated Jennings playing as well as he played last year. He was kind of an afterthought on this roster. So now he gets this opportunity. Tavai did a pretty good job when he was asked to contain the edge last year with Judon out. So you've got Keon White, you've got Ximines, you've got Uche, you've got Jennings, you've got Tavai, you've got Wise. You have legitimate NFL talent at this position. I'm not telling you that they are as good as, Judon is. I wouldn't say that. But at least you have legitimate NFL players. At least you've got that. Take a second, like, comment, subscribe. If you're new to the conversation, welcome in. Water's warm, beer is cold. Enjoy yourself. So when you look at this in the big picture, I think the Patriots did right for what they're trying to establish. And when you're in the beginning of a rebuild, some tough decisions have to be made. And you're going to have to say goodbye to certain players. You're going to have to trade certain players. You're going to have to say, I don't want to re-sign that player. And it feels like Judon was at the point of his career that he was looking for one last big deal. And the Patriots, they're not in that spot right now to give that kind of money to a 32-year-old coming off surgery where they can just commit into 25, into 26, like Judon. And my hope is Judon goes to Atlanta and he gets that big contract extension that he wants. I would imagine he will get a big bump. Atlanta desperately needed a pass rusher. I think that's why they were willing to give up the third-round pick. I'm not sure if Elliott Wolf would have said yes to a deal if this was a situation where Atlanta was like, we'll give you a fifth. Maybe Elliott Wolf would have drawn the line and played, hardball. Maybe. But a third-round pick was too good to say no to for the situation that they were in with Judon and where he's at in his NFL career. So I just think sometimes, the planets don't align. Sometimes it wasn't really meant to be. And Judon, where he is in his career, and the Patriots where they are as an organization, let's try to play the young guys, right? Let's see what Keon White has. Let's give Jennings some more snaps. Let's see what we've got here. Let's add a third-round pick in 2025. Let's go into next year's draft now with a first, a second, and 2/3 and see what we can do, right? Let's evaluate this team. Matthew Judon was not the difference between the 2024 Patriots being a, let's say, 5-win team or a 10-win team. As much as I love the guy, he's just not going to make that kind of a difference. At the end of the day, W's and L's, Judon does not cost you 3 wins, 4 wins. He just doesn't. Like, if you thought this team was a 5-win team with Judon, I don't know why you would not like this deal. If you're in the camp of this team sucks, who cares about this team? They're going to stink. They're going to win 4 games. They're going to win 3 games. Then this is a great trade for that camp. If you are one of those people who feel that way, and I get why you feel that way, if you think this team is as bad as it was last year, if you think this team is going to win 4 games at best, who cares then? Who cares that Matthew Judon is gone? You shouldn't care. Because what's the worst that's going to happen now? Judon's gone. So instead of a 4 or 5-win team, you might think they're a 3-win team. Does that really matter? But on the flip side, if you think this team is a 6 or 7-win team with Judon, I don't think you're going to, lose 3 or 4 games now that you were going to win with Judon. I don't think that's the case. I do not think that's the case. So you've got to look at this and you've got to say to yourself, what's the impact on this team? How much do we lose? How much do we gain? And I have said from the very beginning of the people who have followed this podcast throughout this entire offseason, I've said if you can get a second or third round pick for Judon, I'd make the move. That was at draft time. To get a third round pick in the middle of August for a guy who's going to Instagram bitching about his contract, you can't turn down a third round pick. That would have been irresponsible by Elliott Wolf. That would be malpractice from the executive vice president if Atlanta offered a third round pick and he said no. Because Judon's not the difference. Now, Judon can be the difference or help make up the difference for Atlanta because Atlanta's a team that's going to try to win right now. So he's the kind of guy that you say, man, we might be one piece away from making a deep run. You got a chance to add Matthew Judon, you do it, right? Again, different situations, different organizations. The Falcons are trying to make a run. They're in win now mode. The Patriots are in rebuild mode. Now, I would also, if I'm Atlanta, you look back at that decision they made draft night. Fascinating, right? Because they decided to draft Michael Penix. A lot of people thought they should have drafted an edge, right? I think, what was it? Dallas Turner? Was that the name that was being thrown about all over the place? They decided to not spend their first round pick on a pass rusher. They decided to draft Michael Penix, even though they signed Kirk Cousins. I hated the pick, not because I hate Penix. I hated the pick. It didn't make sense to me. You're in win now mode. You've got a starting quarterback you just paid. Get your pass rusher and get it done, right? Well, now you've given up a third round pick for the pass rusher in next year's draft, and you're going to have to pay, I think, you're going to have to pay Matthew Judon. So instead of getting a rookie edge rusher who could have made an impact for you for 5 years and not pay that guy a ton of money, well, now you're going to have to pay some guaranteed money to Matthew Judon. You have to pay him more money, right? And you just gave up a top 100 pick. So I don't know if you're Atlanta, you go back and you look at that decision on draft night. I don't know if you regret it or not, but I wouldn't love it. Mr. Snoopy, why didn't they ask for their left tackle instead? Well, I don't think Atlanta would be in the business of trading their left tackle. Here's the thing we got to remember when we talk about left tackle and tackle play and offensive line play. The Patriots' offensive line, obviously, yesterday was atrocious. You can listen to the podcast I did yesterday. Frustrating day, right? But let's remember, and I appreciate the super chat. Thank you for that, Mr. Snoopy. It is kind of funny thanking him, Mr. Snoopy. But when you look at offensive line play across the NFL, breaking news, it's not good. And that's not to excuse the current situation here with the Patriots, but it's just not, it's really tough to get good tackles. It's really tough to get great tackles. So there's no team out there that is trying to trade away an offensive tackle. They're worth their weight in gold. The guys who are going to get traded are the guys that the Patriots traded for last year, right? Vidarian Lowe, Tyrone Wheatley Jr. Nobody's looking to trade a starting tackle. Nobody's looking to trade, somebody who they think is at least an average or good left tackle. It's not going to happen. Tackle play is bad. It's just bad. Offensive line play across the league in totality is bad. And so, unfortunately, you have only so many ways that you can find offensive line help. And going out there and trading for a tackle really is not an option. I might end up being wrong. Maybe Trent Williams gets traded because he's in a contract kerfuffle with San Francisco. But I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. So teams don't want to give up tackles. If they got a good tackle, they want to hold on to them, which means you got to hit in the draft. So we're going to have to see if, is Caden Wallace going to end up working out? If he doesn't end up working out, then the Patriots swung and missed on a third-round pick at a tackle spot. That will hurt them. That will hurt them, especially moving forward. So you've got to draft offensive line. You've got to develop offensive line. Because not a lot of those guys end up being free agents until they're older and they're almost washed. And you're not going to be able to trade for a top tier offensive tackle. It doesn't really happen. So you have to hit the draft. You've got to make it right. All right. Third round pick for Matthew Judon. I'm cool with it. I'm good with it. Patriots are moving on. I think it was the right decision that they made. I think a third round pick is a great return. I wish Matthew Judon all the luck in the world down at Atlanta. He did his job while he was here. He was a tremendous Patriot. Don't forget, before you go, to like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review. Matthew Judon, now a Falcon. I'll be back on Friday at 4 o'clock on YouTube to react to the Eagles preseason game. Also, on Friday, I'll be doing the midday show on 98.5 The Sports Hub and NBC Sports Boston from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. reacting to the Eagles-Patriots game. What does Drake May do? All that good stuff. So I'll be busy the next couple days. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. Until next time,